Yeah, but peace, peace. So we got a special show tonight. We got my brother Billy Carson on. Yesterday we had a monumental live that we did with the Black Airbender. If you didn't catch that, it's on my page. But what we did was do, breath work, and we talked about the importance of breathing and how that regulates the body and also preps the body for a fast. So tonight, we're going to get into some high level metaphysics. We're going to talk about the importance of fasting. We're going to discuss the DNA, and, we're just going to let it flow. And the importance of this is to begin to instruct the DNA to set up a resonance so that way you lock in to whatever is going on within the cosmos relative to your magnetic field. I talked about yesterday the importance of the SA node and how the SA node are myocyte cells, which are muscle cells that basically extrapolate the light from your magnetic field, convert it over to your AV node, and develop the pulse, which is what we feel when we put our hands over our heart. So with that being said, we're going to drop some science. We're going to talk about, the importance of why even doing the fast relative to the mythology of the sun is so important. And without further ado, I'm going to bring my brother Billy on, and we're going to discuss. Peace.
Hey, what's up, brother?
How you
All
doing,
right, man. We here.
We here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Like I was telling the family, basically, what we're doing is we're fasting and we're following the mythology of the sun. I feel like it's important that, we can moderate the sun. We don't really, show homage to it on the daily. We don't really pay attention to it too much. So to be able to engage with the sun's trajectory is powerful. And us being electromagnetic, we have a symbiotic relationship to it. So going into 2023, with us embodying the story of the sun by way of recognizing it through giving something of ourselves up relative to fasting, we're making a sacrifice. So to me, this is a rites of passage for all of us to engage, not only in a cosmic story, but also to engage within the body relative to the DNA, because we're speaking directly to the genetics by phase locking to the cosmic story of the sun. You see, so we're going to talk about family, the importance of fasting. We're going to get into the DNA. We're going to get into what we consider a download, like what are downloads, and then we're going to go into then the science and the mythology of the sun. But without further ado, Billy, like I said, fasting to me is very important. I started this godbody challenge, I would say about 2 years ago.
Nice.
And I told myself, basically that, I feel like, people in general, we got to begin to heal to even think about mobilizing together. And one way to do that was to engage groups of people through fasting. But then again, what I told myself is that, not only just fasting, but also doing it relative to cosmic events. So, that's something that I started 2 years ago, and it's grown ever since. So, with that being said, what would you consider, or why would you consider even fasting, an important ritual that we should partake in a certain discipline that we should do?
Yeah. Well, fasting is really, really important for the cellular health of your body. Every single cell in your body has a mitochondria, which is the battery of the actual cell. Now, when you are going through a fast, you're giving your cells a chance to cleanse themselves. You're giving a chance for the mitochondria to recharge itself and for the cell to dispel all the waste material out of its own individual little universe, and which then passes out through the body. So the most important thing you want to do is be able to go in these these type of intermittent fast, or if you're going to go on a 3-day or 4-day, whatever your fast challenge is. But what it does, people usually come back feeling more rejuvenated, more clear-minded.
Mm-hmm.
They feel more energetic because why? All that waste that's been building up inside the cells, and then the mitochondria just been bogged down, getting less and less juice. Now you're giving yourself a chance for that mitochondria to recharge and the cells to dispel all the waste. So it's really, really important to fast. You can't just keep stuffing food in your stomach all the time and thinking, oh, I'm eating clean, and so I'm good to go. It's good to have sometimes a 16-hour fast or 17-hour fast before the next meal, intermittent fasting and things like this. It's actually healthy for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, for the family who is just tapping in, those who follow me have heard me, basically explain, my synopsis in reference to why fasting is important, relegated to us being electromagnetic. Now, when we fast, the body itself is electromagnetic. And, it's piezoelectric. Our bones are piezoelectric, meaning when we apply compression or stress to it, it generates a charge. Mm-hmm. So when we fast, the brain sees that as a cognitive challenge. It doesn't like the level of stress that it's experiencing. So what it does is it activates what you call adaptive stress response pathways. These adaptive stress response pathways then lead into BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factors. Now, brain-derived neurotrophic factors is one of the main, if not the main, most important antidepressant that we can produce. We can produce it by way of exercising, fasting, whether we're engaging with information that's difficult to read, etc. That produces BDNF. BDNF also stimulates synaptic plasticity, and that then leads into the development of a larger neural network. So understanding that our hearts is what generate our magnetic field, and as I'm running this fast concurrent with celestial events, I'm aware of the fact that based on the proximity of certain celestial bodies, information is coming in, but information is also being impeded on our magnetic field. So if we're on day 2, day 3 of fasting, I'm aware of the fact that now we're giving the brain the capacity to access a larger portion of this field where all the information is being impeded on, and thus we process that as what we call a download. So also as well, I learned this from KT, is that your body goes through a process where you develop ketosis, or it's basically a molecule that pretty much latches on to heavy metals and pulls them out like a claw. Your body goes through, like you said, a cellular regeneration. The mitochondria also begins to be stimulated because the mitochondria is building up more of a capacity to process more light, or what we consider electrons. That then leads into ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is phosphorus responsible for the light in the body. So with that being said, fasting is important. But again, we got to begin to look at the body as a piece of technology, because once we consider it to be a technology that we have to manicure and take care of, then we can really embody what we call downloads and things of that nature. So
yeah, absolutely. You hit it right on the head, man. And the downloads are real. Some people think it's woo-woo and this and that, but in actual quantum physics and quantum mechanics, they proved that the body is sending and receiving a Wi-Fi signal, or they were able to even connect individual DNA strands to a computer server and upload and download digital information to the DNA. They were able to re-encode A, C's, T's, and G's into zeros and ones and then back again. So they know that our body can receive information, transcode it, decode it, save it in a volume in the body, and it can even then send it back out again through the magnetic field.
That's a fact. And also too, when we look at DNA, we're looking at obviously a helix, but we're looking at a magnetic vector field versus an electric vertical field, which makes up the helix itself, the sugar phosphate. Now, of course, we got 4 bases that make up the DNA, but also too, when we fast, what we're doing is, of course, increasing the voltage. Now, what this does is it gives the DNA the ability to open up. It takes a lot of energy for those genes to be exposed. The hydrogen bond in the center that connects both helixes act like a zipper. And when you build enough voltage in the body, what the DNA does is use what we call scalar waves to basically transition through the DNA to open it up to allow the base pairs to be exposed. And that's when then the DNA sets up the resonance to be able to communicate, to unlock certain information and things of that nature. We talk about resonance a lot. And, you know, I've said this before, that when we, like, for example, see numbers and things of that nature, we automatically begin to go to Google and try to receive information that way, not understanding that resonance implies vibration, which implies oscillation, which implies a two-way communication. So when you're seeing that number and you feel a resonance, there's a communication happening. And
That's
see,
right.
again, the goal is to raise up the capacitance in the body to be able to upload the information, but also internalize it as information. You see? So
Yeah, you have to be able to discern it.
Exactly. So again, when we think about DNA sets up a resonance itself. It doesn't communicate with words. So if a DNA was a transmitter and then there was another receiver waiting for the information to be encoded, the exact frequency has to be set up between the two in order for the receiver to receive the information. It has to be identical. So again, when we see numbers and we resonate with something, just because we don't audibly hear the information being given to us, resonance is a form of communication. And that's what the Mayans understood. That's what, you know, the Egyptians understood, etc. So I just wanted to hone in on that point because I feel like that's important.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Even the Russians had a huge experiment where they took sound frequencies and they sent the frequencies at the DNA. And they discovered that on specific frequencies, they were able to re-encode or rewrite DNA, and damaged DNA can actually be healed just through frequency technology. I mean, that's massive. I mean, that's the future of medicine.
Exactly. Sound.
Yeah.
Because we all know that, you know, sound, because what Nikola Tesla famously said is light is the sound wave moving through the ethers. So when we're talking about sound, we're talking about what they scientifically call a longitudinal wave, which is actually the wave that separates the DNA helixes in order to write codes, etc. We call it longitudinal wave, we call it scalar waves, we call it free energy, but our DNA access this. So, you know, with that being said, speaking on what you referenced as far as Russia, there was a scientist named Nikola Kazirev who used to build technology for these individuals. But what he then found out is, you know, because, draw it back a little bit, the Americans understood his science. And so what America did in 1952 was build a hydrogen bomb, and they nicknamed it Mike. What they did was they calculated initially 6 megatons when the detonator or when the explosion would go off. But they realized after the detonation, it was 10 megatons, and they didn't calculate the extra megatons. So they were trying to figure out, like, where is this extra energy coming from? So with that being said, they understood that based on the local celestial geometry, location and time is all relative to how much extra hyperdimensional energy you can transduce. So this is what the push for nuclear fusion reaction is today. It's not necessarily free energy. They're in the knowing of the fact that based on certain geometries within space, the time and the location, they have the capacity to literally extrapolate information and transduce energy from stars. You see? So that's what the Americans got off from understanding Nikola Kazirev's work. And, you know, of course, his work was, you know, put to rest under the Soviet Union and things of that nature. So, and that even goes into, you know, the Nazis with the Nazi bell and anti-gravity and,
the Die Glock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when we fast, comparing our body to a nuclear fusion reactor, again, this is why I throw the fast during certain celestial events, understanding that we have the capacity then to transduce hyperdimensional energy.
Right, definitely. A lot of people don't realize how these star alignments create specific gravitational fields that literally affect your DNA and also every single cell in your body. The reason why on full moons, for example, they staff up the police force and they put more people in the emergency room to work the emergency room. Why? Because they know that the extra gravitational waves are going to affect the consciousness of the people, and they're going to do dumb stuff, and they're going to end up in the police cuffs, or they're going to end up in the hospital, or both. And so we know from that, and also a scientific study that was done with frog embryos in the ISS, International Space Station, they saw how lack of gravity, but also adding gravitational fields would affect or not affect the embryo. So we know that based on the gravitational field and the different star alignments that are existing, putting a specific type of force and energy on our body, our cells and our DNA respond in a specific way. So you're absolutely right about the alignment and the fasting at the same time. What you're doing is you're maximizing the effect of the fast, and you're getting the most out of it. Plus, you're getting uploads and downloads. It's up to the person to be able to discern them.
And again, you said discern them. That's the key, because we're quick to go to the computer, but again, understanding that the body itself is a quantum computer. You know, again, a quantum computer can read zeros and ones simultaneously. What that equates to in reference to us is having the capacity to spiritualize matter. And what I mean by that is basically understanding that, you know, there's a differentiation among everything in reference to the conjugate geometry of the universe, which is force and motion versus inertia and acceleration. So you're speaking on gravity, and this is why it's important to understand certain gravitational pulls. You know, what they consider gravity today is dielectric acceleration. And if it's a centripetal convergence, and if we can physically see what gravity looks like, it'll be a spiral relative to the golden ratio, which is that
it'll be an accretion disk. Exactly what it would be. Exactly.
An accretion disk. So again, when you identify with gravity, you're creating a fractal symmetry through your DNA by way of your anatomy, recognizing the same geometrical configuration of what gravity is. And this is how you set up a proper resonance. But again, that's seeing zeros and ones simultaneously, just like a quantum computer. And understanding, again, a fast builds up structured plasma in the body, more specifically our brain. When our brain goes through this level of stress during fasting, what happens is the plasma produces standing waves, because whenever you set up a resonance, standing waves are produced. And the brain, or the water in the brain, acts like almost an interferometric device, where it's able to literally pull information from the 0 point and pull it in back into the body. This runs synonymous with the horns of Amun. So if you notice in Kemet, if you look at the ram, it has the horns and it has a deity sitting up under it. And what I've learned is that they were speaking, of course, about, and as you know, microbiology. But understanding that, again, in reference to the 4 ventricles in the brain that sit in a pool of electrically charged plasma, once we produce a disturbance within these waters, the brain now has access to, through quantum entanglement, access information within the 0 point, or what we call counter space, and pull it in within the body. So all these things, family, that we're speaking about is all relative to, again, the importance and the power of fasting, and also DNA. So we, you know, a lot of us, we don't really know the significance of DNA and how powerful it is, but you know, it's a powerhouse.
Yeah, it is, man. It's really powerful. I mean, it literally has the capability of doing so much. Every single person has the storage capacity for 13.5 billion years of information in their body. And how old is the universe? Approximately 13.5 billion years old. So the secrets to the entire universe are inside of your body.
That's a fact. Yes. And again, the key is to be able to access this information. And for me, you know, I'm big on really understanding, you know, what these ancestors knew. Like, you know, how did they understand the sun? Like, what was the sun to them? Like, when they didn't have a reference point to somebody telling them what the sun was, when they first initially seen it, what was that? And how did it communicate to their DNA? So, you know, with that being said, I'm very big on demonstrating our ancestors' intellectual property in real time. I'm more intrigued about, okay, what type of sciences were being brought to these individuals by these beings that were said that visited these people? Like, what science was that? So, you know, that's when I start to get into the study of longitudinal interferometry, which deals with nuclear fusion. I get
Yeah.
into the science of optimized translation of vorticity, which deals with the science of death. I get into the science of, quantum chromodynamics, which deals with black holes,
Yeah.
because I want to know basically the essence of how they perceive this reality as opposed to how we've been taught to look at it.
Yeah.
So when we bring the sun into the fold, to me, what I consider the sun is a hyperdimensional gateway that serves
Mm.
as a medium between us and higher star systems, a portal. So
Exactly.
then when I engage in that level of intellectual property by way of looking at the sun and acknowledging it as such, there's an anatomical effect simultaneously. And like you
Yeah.
said, we have billions of information stored within our DNA. So in
Yeah.
order to access this information, we got to begin to perceive our reality contrary to how we've been told it was.
Yeah.
So when we engage and set up a resonance with the sun from that level, that's what then begins to activate that information, stimulate it, and thus bring it to the conscious mind.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And the sun gives you ancient knowledge,
mhm,
because when you analyze and understand how the sun works, at its very core, the photons are created from a fusion reaction. That fusion reaction, those photons don't shoot straight to the edge of the sun and come to your eye. They actually go in a up and down direction and all around squigglies. It takes thousands of years for one photon to get to the surface of the sun, and
mhm,
then it takes 8 minutes for it to get to your eyeball from the sun. So
mhm,
the sun, if the sun went dark right now, we'd have 8 minutes of sunlight left until 8 minutes are up, it goes dark. But
mhm,
that photon that pings your eye goes down in your retina, goes to the back of the brain, gets decoded by the brain. It's
mhm.
carrying thousands of years of information in one photon.
Exactly, exactly. Like you said, it carries information. So in order to internalize the information that's being processed, say by way of us sun gazing, we have to engage in a level of commoderation by way of acknowledging the sun for what it really is.
Yeah.
So once we can use the right brain, which is the imagination, and the left brain, which is the science, the logic, that's when we're going to be able to pretty much create what you consider in your brain neurogenesis, where the brain again develops a larger neural network because it's recognizing the sun as itself and vice versa. The
Right.
sun is mindful. I've said this before. The sun is conscious. When you
Mm-hmm.
consider plasma, plasma is conscious.
Yep.
So the plasma is mindful in a sense to where it's not only a portal, but it's also gauging your magnetic field relative to its own. So I've used
Mm-hmm.
this analogy before. I said, in all movies, you notice, let's say not all movies, but you notice like movies like with villains and things of that nature. You notice when the good guys are running away from the bad guy, the good guys are always able to jump through the portal and get to the other side to escape the
Yeah.
bad guy. But as soon as the
Right.
bad guy gets there, he
Yeah.
can't get through, and that's because again, plasma is conscious because it's
Mm-hmm.
your magnetic field. So if you are living, a righteous lifestyle and you're commoderating the sun and things of that nature, you're developing your magnetic field by way of fasting, working out. This is what allows you to constructively compress into the sun's magnetic field and thus
Mm-hmm.
receive the resonance and the information from it. But
Right.
again, like I said, I wanted to hone in on resonance specifically because, like I said, we got to start understanding, like when we hear ringing in the ears and things of that
Yeah.
nature, that's information. But
Mm-hmm.
until we, you know, if unless we never get to a point where we build up enough power or voltage within the body, we can never really internalize it as information to understand what's being given to us.
Right. Right. Exactly. And just to add one more thing to that in terms of the portals,
Yes.
astrophysicists, and this is now in all universities taught to astrophysics, it's basically they discovered something called X points, which are all around the Earth and lead up to the sun and even to the moon and beyond. These X points are diffusion areas where magnetic fields cross and create portals. And
Mm-hmm.
these portals open up these huge gateways to other areas in our galaxy and even beyond. And one of them opens up randomly throughout the day and it makes a portal straight to the sun. This
Mm.
is science fact. You can't even, this isn't off the dome. This isn't a hypothesis. This is science fact.
Yes, yes. And to add to that, this is why, of course, they built the pyramids where the magnetic fields cross, because that is
Exactly.
where the force, that's where the gravitational force is intense. And
Hmm.
also, when they would make transition, they understood the science of this gravitational force. And by way of, again, electrifying the plasma in the plasma in the body now was able to gather what you call enough escape velocity, which is what they study in rocketry, and successfully disengage from the physical body and return back to the sun. And that's again because of the fact that they were building these pyramids on these ley lines where the magnetic fields cross, which created a very intense gravitational pull. So that gravitational pull is what aided the plasma body to come out the physical successfully and defy gravity. Because, like I've said, they understood what gravity was, which is dielectric acceleration. So when you can manipulate that space, then you have the capacity to defy it and move beyond move beyond or defy gravity. And then through what you're speaking on with the magnetic fields crossing, what today they also too call it the flux transfer event, or the flux transfer event. I want to say the flux transfer event. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the flux transfer event. But it's when the relationship between the sun and the earth develop like a portal. And that's how, protons are getting through, photons, all these things are getting through relative to a flux transfer event. So that's another portal. And that's actually what people can look into if they want to understand, more of the Western side of what a portal is. It's called a flux transfer event. But yeah, that gravity, you spoke on gravity. And again, the importance of those magnetic ley lines that cross, that develop portals, like you said.
Absolutely. Definitely does. And the ancients, they knew about all this, man. We're just trying to rediscover what they already knew. They knew about all this stuff. All these ancient sites are built on these magnetic fields. They knew how to harness the magnetic energy of the earth. They knew how to tap into it. They knew how to send information through it to and fro, even to charge up these temples that they had. They would charge the temples with energy. There's one temple I went to in Africa where when you walk in, you have two charged electromagnetic crystal granite walls, and you walk through and you touch both walls as you walk. So many people have done this that fingers have actually dug grooves into solid granite over thousands of years. But when you walk through that hallway, you get the healing energy from the magnetized granite, and that's been charged by this magnetic field. And I mean, these people were geniuses, man.
I mean, pure geniuses. It's interesting because, again, referring back to the magnetic field lines that cross, that will be considered what we call a black hole based on the gravitational pull. Now, when you look at the word Kemet, we understand that Kemet means the land of the black face or the land of the black soil, things of that nature. But when you transliterate that word, you then get into Kemet, which is chemistry. And what they understood was alchemy specifically. So alchemy is the fact that you have the capacity to manipulate what we call the ethers, apply a level of compression to it, and then develop that centripetal vortex in order for things to come into fruition. Now, when you're dealing with alchemy, that deals with, of course, a level of pressure, a temperature gradient, thermal motion. There has to be heat applied and things of that nature in order to change the structure of what you're trying to manipulate, which would be considered the ethers, because the universe works off of pressure mediation. So with that being said, that's key. And then, and again, when you look at Kemet and you look at the word Kemet in reference to chemistry, then you look at the periodic table, understanding that the periodic table, the first element is hydrogen. But then when you move on, say, to the ninth element, that's just hydrogen folded in on itself 9 times. So the real only element that exists is hydrogen. And they understood now that hydrogen is a black hole, just like the atoms were made up of are small black holes and things of that nature, where, again, all the access, or where all the information exists, which would what they would call like the Planck dimension and things of that nature. So in Kemet, which again, what they refer to as the land of the, or the place of the land of the black face and things of that nature, it's really the land of the black space, because through alchemy, they had the capacity to find the place of the black hole, which is that point where that access of information exists, what we would call the 0 point of the Planck dimension, things of that nature. So yeah, like you said, these individuals, they had they were way far ahead of their time. And
I was gonna say on the hydrogen. So hydrogen is, at least to astrophysicists, they believe it's the number one chance or opportunity we can use to communicate with ET. In other words, if we send out information on the hydrogen frequency, which would be the most widely used in the universe, they can communicate. Now let's backtrack all the way to Kemet one more time. If you look at the Great Pyramid at Giza, you have the Queen's Chamber and then you have the King's Chamber. Now, back when the Nile was closer to the pyramid and the water would run underneath the pyramid, it created something called physiostatic electricity.
Yes.
Some of the water was passed up the Grand Gallery into the King's Chamber and then multiplied and sent through the apex for wireless power. Some of the water was sent down to the Queen's Chamber, which would extract hydrogen atoms using electrolysis, if you analyze exactly how that box is set up. And then those hydrogen atoms was used for something specific. Those open shafts on the side of the pyramid that align with star systems, on those alignments, they would send a communication via hydrogen to Sirius, to Aldebaran, to Orion, and all these other places. They were sending information. Hey, this is the status of our breakaway civilization right now, whatever. And so they communicated on the hydrogen frequency, just like we're trying to do right now.
Exactly. And two, when you said that's what they utilize to try to find extraterrestrial, they also reference that as the water hole, because they said it's like 21 centimeters, but it's a quiet frequency. It's still. It doesn't. There's no sound, or there's like a stillness within that space. Because they understand too that when you introduce a spark in a primordial source, you can literally synthesize the basic ingredients that make up life, which are atoms. So that in and of itself shows you that, there is extraterrestrial life, but how we conceive that to be is how we look in the mirror. Extraterrestrial can be as small as the point on a pin needle and things of that nature. But, again, going back to the hydrogen, that's key, because hydrogen would be considered the hidden one in Kemet. Hydrogen would also be considered the H1 that actually applies the backbone to what you call histones that the DNA wrap around. You see, that's the hidden one. The 8 original twins as the 8 histones, and then the 9 being the hydrogen or the hidden one. You see, so hydrogen again is something that, and I personally have taken hydrogen, pure hydrogen. Shout out to a guy named Dr. Inky. He actually had what you call momatomics, which allowed you to basically take pure hydrogen. And what that did, of course, was construct and redefine the plasma in the body to allow you to be more accessible to information outside of you.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah. Definitely.
So we again, like, I feel like this fast definitely is important, because of the fact not only are we running with the mythology of the sun, but again, when we know that we're electromagnetic and we build up enough voltage in the body through fasting, we're increasing the strength of our magnetic field, which again capacity to constructively compress in the magnetic field of the sun. So again, the sun is mindful, family, and that's an important factor to understand. And if you will, Billy, give them a brief synopsis for those who aren't aware of it, the ancient mythology of the sun, because again, we're following the trajectory of it by way of fasting on the 21st, and they say the sun is stationary for a certain amount of time, and then it rises on the 25th. So you're familiar. What is your stance and your perspective on, basically, because it's not only the story of Jesus. This is a story that's told in a lot of ancient stories. So what is one of the ancient
stories? It's all about the solstice. It's all about the the rise and fall of the sun, the longest day and the shortest day. Those are the 2 biggest celebrated days of the year, pretty much. And we keep celebrating this solstice, and we keep celebrating this winter solstice and summer solstice. And if you look at all these ancient sites, majority of them have alignments with the solstice. So we're not celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. His name isn't even Jesus anyway. What we're celebrating is the sun, and trying to get some people who are heavily religious to understand that you're literally praising the sun, which is nothing wrong with that to me.
Right.
But in their mind, it's an idol. No, it's exactly what you're doing. You're praising the sun, and you're praying to an alien, because Yeshua said, "I'm not of this world." So you're already dealing with an alien, number one. And number two, you're not even worshiping this guy. You're actually giving praises to the sun on its highest and lowest peak of the year, Easter and Christmas. And then also you have to understand that the sun is moving on a trajectory through space, and the planets are chasing it, and they're orbiting this way. This is now has made all mainstream astrophysics books. And when you look at the lines that the planets create chasing the sun, it's exactly like a strand of DNA.
DNA. Exactly.
It's not a flat disk this way, like would be straight and trade. It's actually this way, and it's moving this way, and the planets are chasing it, and they're creating this helix as they move along.
Right.
And so it's really all about DNA, and the sun is like the actual center of the nucleus of the atom, if you so speak. But it's also creating this DNA helix as it floats through space and moves around the Milky Way galaxy. And so people for thousands of years in religions have been worshiping either Muhammad or Yeshua, but they're really worshiping the sun the whole time. And to me, there's nothing wrong with that. The sun is conscious. The sun is the giver of life, and it can take life away. So it has the power to give life and snatch it right back. You know what I'm saying? It'll hit you with a coronal mass ejection, a CME, and burn your whole planet up, or it'll chill out for about a few hundred years and give you a chance to prosper again. So and it's conscious, so you got to pay homages to the sun, man.
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting too. AA had put me on this as well in reference to the heart. When you listen to it, you hear it beating, but it's saying something specific, and it's saying Yahuwah, 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 Yahuwah. So it's saying the word of God, which again denotes sound. So when we say, what is the word of God? The word of God is speaking to you every couple of seconds. So again, going back to the commiseration of the sun, when you move in sync with the sun, you phase lock with it. And when you do it, again, the sun is gauging your heart, which is what is responsible for producing your magnetic field. And that's how you constructively embed into the sun. So that's again why, I feel like it's just paramount for us to, if we're not even aware of it, like you said, we would look at, paying homage to the sun today, Western science and academics would look at it like, oh, why are you praising the sun? But if you look on the walls in Kemet and look on the walls and, the Mayan, culture and things of that nature, the Dogons, they're all praising the sun. The iconography looks different, but it's very visible in reference to Kemet, what they wrote on the wall. So that's why for me, like I said, as me being a student, I'm always into trying to understand what this sun really is, because as I'm sitting in the house, I'm always thinking to myself, like, damn, like there is a big ass ball of plasma outside that gives light, that gives information. Why are we in the house? So again, when you see them holding their hands up to the sun, a lot of them you'll see, they're standing on platforms, which are inductors, because they understand, when you get sunlight, that's electricity and information. So when they're standing on platforms, those are conductors that are either glass, wood, or rubber. So that way their body can process as much electricity or information as they can. So that way, once they step off the platform, they properly disengage the information from their body to the other person that needs healing, that needs information. It's a transference of information. It's a resonance, like I spoke about. But it's important for us to really understand, the science of the sun, and also, again, during a fast, coupling our agenda with what the sun is going through. So
right. Yeah, one of the ancient gods, and he was a pharaoh, actually, not a god, but one of the ancient pharaohs who worshipped a god named Aten, the sun disk, who also known as Amun-Ra. Akhenaten, Pharaoh Akhenaten, he had King Tut's father, and his father was Amenhotep III, which was King Tut's grandfather. But Akhenaten decided to stop worshiping all the different gods, which included the sun and many others. Aten convinced him that he was the one and only true God, so but he really thought he was worshiping the sun. So he started focusing on this sun worship, and he tried to usher in monotheism through worshiping the sun initially. And that's kind of the very beginnings of Coptic Christianity, long before thousands of years before Jesus was even born.
That's true. That's true. Because prior to that, the Egyptians, they would use devices in order to access the sun, enhance the power of the sun. This is where you get a lot of laser technology from today, in reference to focusing the sunlight like a beam. And with those people, being blue-black, literally they had the ability to process the entire electromagnetic spectrum. So they knew they didn't have to penetrate the body for any form of, you know, surgery or to remove tumors. They would just basically match the frequency of what the tumor is through sound waves, and then focus their body at a specific orientation in order to allow to focus then the light or the sunlight as a beam to then run along the tumor in the body and liberate and associate the tumor based on the infrared radiation coming in. So they never had to physically open it. It was based on, again, the science of the sun and, you know, of course, laser technology. You know, so it's again, definitely an important factor in this whole process with us engaging with the sun. And you said something that I want to hit on. It'll come back to me, but yeah, you know, it's a very important time that we're in. And like I said, with us engaging in this level of information, not only right now, but also, you know, during the fast, this begins to stimulate the interest of the information that's encoded within the DNA, and thus it to the conscious mind. So, you know, a difference between teaching and education is pulling something that is in you and pulling it out. You know, teaching is just taking something and just you know, kind of pushing it into somebody and forcing that person to regurgitate it. So family, right now we're educating, and we're getting you to remember things that you already know. That's why it may sound familiar. So, you know, it's again, like I said, not only the conversation, but just the fasting alone is a key factor in reference to why it's important to partake going into 2023.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. I think you froze. Oh, yeah, you're back. Okay, yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, listen, this has been a great talk, man. This is exciting stuff. This is the kind of stuff I like to vibe, and I got to get you on the podcast, man, immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, family, we definitely got something in the works. We you know, these type of conversations definitely are need to be put on, and what my brother Billy has already been doing, putting it on the big screen. Me, in my vision, is, you know, being able to speak and teach in a way that's immersive, you know. And shout out to Blue Pill. We're actually in the process of putting together a book called Convos with the Cosmos, and that book is going to be literally, you know, the new Bible. You know, we're documenting everything that's been prophesied from 2020 on. So, you know, it's literally it's one of those books. And you know, again, like I'm in the process of putting together work that's more visual, so that where people relative to the science could see what I'm speaking about, so that way they can internalize the information a lot better. So just like my brother Billy is putting it on the big screen, that's what we plan on going, you know, and making it worldwide for the people to really gain access to. But yes, we're going to be doing something here shortly. You know, we're in the works of it. And yeah, Billy, again, this was an amazing conversation. I felt like it was, again, pivotal for us to speak at this level in order to really stimulate the people's interests and information that's encoded within them. And yeah, like I said, we'll be talking to the family too in due time about what we got going on. But absolutely, yeah.
Looking forward to it, man. And shout out to Blue Pill.
Shout out to Blue, man. But
man.
Other than that, family, I hope you had your pen and your pad like I advised. You know, we talked about a lot of information. And yeah, I'll be saving this live too. So for the family that didn't get a chance to tap in, I'll be saving this live. But yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna land a plane there. I appreciate your time, Billy. And
hey, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be speaking soon.
All right, brother. Peace.
Peace.